Hello again, and welcome back to another update on the Aries North Node. Some random things that are really working their way through my consciousness at this time that I'm excited to share. Just some thoughts, some opinions, and that is one of the pieces that is really with me at this time that feels like sudden freedom, even though I'm quite certain it's always been true. It just wasn't true for me until today, yesterday, these last couple days have really clicked in this understanding of everything is opinion. There's science that wants to differentiate opinion from fact, that wants to prove things as fact, and possibly to some extent we're able to do that, maybe, and maybe that proof is just terms that enough people can agree on, because I think there's always going to be people who don't understand the concept well enough to be able to prove something as fact. So the difference between opinion and fact, I'm starting to realize how literally I've been taking life, how literally I hear other people's opinions of me and just believe them, just take it in as truth. And I believe it started in my childhood. I got confused in my childhood about other people's opinions of me compared to my sense of self. And when you're just little, when you're less than 5 years old, you don't have a sense of self. You don't. That comes later, much later. So if somebody got in your head really, really early on, all you had was their opinion. Right? There was no reference point. And so their opinion could have easily worked its way into our subconscious and formed a belief, formed a core belief. And I'm really unraveling this, because when I look at the core belief that I ended up with, that I've talked a lot about lately, that I'm unraveling, I'm bad, or I'm a bad influence, or whatever, all of that translated to I'm not worthy, I don't deserve, other people are gonna ostracize me, it's just a matter of time. I am bad came from my parents' opinion of me, not the facts, not some evidence-based psychological analysis, diagnosis. It was their opinion. That's all it was. And I've spent 3+ decades unraveling their opinion out of my psyche. It was like scar tissue that I built everything that I am around it. My work ethic, for example, my workaholic tendencies in my 20s are a perfect example of this, where even just moving away to a state all by myself to prove that I am good and I do know stuff and I can figure this out and I can stand on my own 2 feet and I am more than just the natural progression of what somebody else started before me. And so, yeah, my workaholic tendencies, the whole reason I was working like that, one, it was a distraction from my internal self-dislike. And number two, it was also very similar to the move. It was proving that I am good. I am good. And of course, my metric was work ethic, work productivity, work output, the amount of money you make, all of that was the ruler, the measuring stick, because that was the value system that was instilled in me when I was little. Again, their opinions about What was most important? And I really tease this apart because the thing is, number one, I don't know if this is avoidable. I think it's really normal and natural that our children would just be little floppy disk downloaded versions of whatever your opinions were at the time you were parenting them. Like that just seems really normal to me. So like I don't know if it's avoidable. It might be unavoidable that our opinions just naturally form what our children are and who they think they are. That makes a lot of sense to me. And number two, as adults, we do have a sense of self. And yes, a lot of that could very well be, built around that scar tissue of those early opinions that really messed with our heads. It could be based on that. It could be based on something else that we learned, some other opinion that we absorbed at some point that felt really good to us. So we started doing this. I say that like where I'm at right now, being able to unravel I am bad as me absorbing somebody else's opinion at some point, being able to do that has only come through years of self-exploration and introspection and reflection on my patterns, and being able to unravel like what is really me, what is like truly me, and what is the part that like before I knew what was going on, someone told me that that's what I am. Again, I don't know if that's avoidable. I think that's very normal, that that's a moment that we wake up to in our lives, realizing that there are things in us that are not who we really are. And I say all of this in conjunction with the Aries North Node, because this is very much about clarifying our true identity, our real self. And that Libra South Node, the Air South Node, where other people's opinions and other people's laws and rules and commitments and the way they were doing life, like it's so natural and normal that that would be our first guess, that we would do life the way that we were shown. And at some point along the way, we have enough of a sense of self built up inside of ourselves. We have enough identity of who we really are that now we're able to get a sense of the gap between this person's opinion and who we really are. So like now, as I bring these, sexual shame experiences up into my consciousness these last few months, as the Scorpio South Node was like getting closer and closer to 0 degrees where my descendant is, it was like they just kept coming up out of my subconscious for me to see and love and witness the pain of what that felt like for their opinion of what I was doing and who I was and what it meant about me. And like they let their opinion guide their behavior in a way that shaped who I am, shaped who I have been, shaped who I have become up until this point. Like that opinion that I was being bad, like I said, like they just kept catching me doing bad things and telling me about it. And that opinion, they took in the experience, they looked at the data in front of them, the situation that was playing out, they compared that to like what they know, what their parents taught them, what society is doing and everything else in the world. And the end opinion was that I was the bad one. And at this point, as an adult, I can see that that was simply their opinion. And that doesn't make it okay. That doesn't take back everything that came from that experience in my life, like all the patterns, all the tendencies. It doesn't change anything other than I feel like it's like reclaiming my power of my real identity to say that was their opinion. And we can agree to disagree. You know, we can have different philosophies about life because now I'm an adult and I have the capacity to make my own choices based on my own sense of identity. And as children, we do not have that capacity. We don't have a sense of self yet. Like, we don't have an identity, and ego is shaped over time. The ego is trained over time. It becomes what the environment is. I think that's, you know, how I spiritually understand nature versus nurture. It's like nature is your soul. It's who you really are. It's who you came forward as. It's like what you were before you were a body. It's the part of you that's like constant in the middle of everything that else that transpires in your life. And then there's nurture, and that's your ego. Like, that's the part of you that got trained. And the ego can be trained and retrained. It can be programmed and reprogrammed. And the question is, the question to always be asking ourselves is, who's doing the programming? Because we are here in this 18-month chapter of the Aries North Node to reallocate trust from others to ourselves, to trust ourselves, to program ourselves. And that is a big responsibility. That's a big responsibility, to be in the driver's seat of being responsible for who and what you are. And essentially, the Libra South Node is encouraging us, if there are sources that you're listening to or, you know, prioritizing in your life that do not feel good to you, that feel off, that feel like there's something underneath here that I can't quite see, like there's a motive that I don't think is being portrayed on the surface, like there's something here that does not feel right to me. The second you have that feeling, X out, walk out, thank you and goodbye. Like, shut it down. Stop taking it in. The emotion of disgust is very interesting and relevant right here. And I think it's a good one to understand how it works and the benefit, the beauty of it. The benefit of the feeling of disgust is that its goal is to prevent you from absorbing something that is toxic or poisonous to your system. I highly recommend Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, where she goes through, I think, 87-ish different emotions and like talks about the research and her research and on about each one and how they kind of all fit together. And disgust is one of our best self-protective mechanisms that we have. And that is one of the things, like I'm thinking about NXIVM. I've been rewatching The Vow for like the 14th time now. Thinking about NXIVM, one of the things that they did was the leader, Keith Raniere, he kissed everyone on the lips. And there were people in the group who felt icky about that, like a lot of people in the group who felt icky about that. And that was one of the first ways that they divorced people from their own ick, from their own disgust of like, no, I'm not kissing him, like gross. No, absolutely not. And they even had like interviews on The Vow where there were people talking about how gross it seemed to them. And yet they were able to talk themselves out of their disgust and into alignment with what it was that they were disgusted by. And years down the road, they are like, oh my God, what have I been doing? But like, the disgust was there in the first instant. And so disgust of like you can be physically disgusted, like when you open some like sour milk and you smell it, like that disgust, that like, whoa, gross, like you would never eat it. You would never want to eat it, and you shouldn't, because it will make you sick. So physical disgust is protecting you from taking in things that will make you physically sick, that will hurt your chances of survival. And energetic disgust, like I've talked about how like I have like energetic puking sometimes, where I'll listen because I really want to understand like this opposing viewpoint, this other's perspective. I'm listening and I'm trying to take it in, I'm trying to make it make sense, and I have to stop listening to it. I have to completely close out of it because I'm over here like energetically gagging at what is being said. And it's the same thing. It's trying to protect you from taking in something that will hurt your chances for survival. Disgust. And so I feel like this goes really well together with these two kind of understandings of, number one, everything that everyone ever says is their opinion. And so that means automatically, yes, baby, that means automatically that your sense of self can decide, do I agree with that opinion or do I disagree with that opinion? And all of that will be kind of like that internal felt sense of truth. So everything everyone ever says, that was just too fun to say. Everything everyone ever says is their opinion, including every single thing that I ever say in my videos. It's my opinion. And I'm going to shout it loud and proud because it's my opinion. And for where I'm at right now, this is the leading edge of my own personal truth. And as I learn, my opinion changes. You know, like as I get exposed to new life experiences, my opinion changes. And I will always give my opinion. That's the best I have access to. And that's true for everyone, no matter what. The only thing, the furthest thing that anybody ever has access to is their opinion. And the catastrophic mistake that we can make in this life is to think that somebody else's opinion is better than ours. And that's just never true. I recorded yesterday, it'll be out soon on the channel, a heart-to-heart with the person who is currently my life coach. Her name is Ananda. She has a YouTube channel called The Galactic Mystic. She holds space for me to get to discover my true identity in a safe container. It's absolutely so valuable. And one of the things that she says that I love her for is she's like, we're all just regular. We're all just regular. Everybody's opinion is the same. Everybody's opinion is the leading edge of everything that they have personally experienced in their lifetime. And I think there are times where, based on our own lack of experience in a certain realm, we will think that they've experienced more, therefore they have a better opinion, therefore I shouldn't listen to my opinion, I should listen to theirs. And that is like the epitome of what this Libra South Node is wanting to wake us up to. Is like, where are you still trusting some other random person's opinion because their opinion's equal to yours? And if their opinion is hurting you, if their opinion is leading you to create patterns in your life that are hurting you, the Aries North Node is lending us the courage to ask, who am I really? And when we sink into our soul, when we connect with all that is, there's only love there for every single one of us. Again, that's my opinion, right? You take it in and you see how that feels to you. But I believe that at the core of every single person, at the soul root of every single person, is God. Every single person, without exception, we're all just regular. You know, that another way you could say that is that we are all divinely special. You know, there are people telling the story. And it really bugs me. Their opinion of it really bugs me because it doesn't feel quite true to me. I get where they're coming from. But there are people telling the story that like, we shouldn't go around saying like, I'm special, I have a special mission, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're not special. And like, another way to say that is like, we're all just regular, right? Like, cause we are. But like, I prefer the version, and I tell the version that like, no, I am special and I do have a special mission, and so do you. So does everyone. That's why we fucking came. That's why we put up with the nonsense bullshit of being human, the difficult experience that it is, the pain and suffering of what it is to be human. The reason we put up with it is because we're all special, is because we all have a special mission on this planet. We all have a reason why we chose to come here. So like, you could say, you're not special and neither am I, or you could say, I'm special and so are you. And like, it's kind of the same thing, because at the end of the day, like, if we're all special, is anyone really special? You know, I definitely get where they're coming from. Like, we can't use that whole deal, like, I'm special, blah, blah, blah. Like, we can't use it to be above anybody else. That doesn't make sense, because they are just as special as you are. They are God, just like you are. So like, I'm special doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else. To me, it means I'm connected with the root of my soul, and I understand that I am an extension of God in physical form, and I have a reason for being here, a special one, an important reason for being here. And I believe that every single person on this planet had and still has an important reason for being here. And when our reason is over, when we've done the physical part of the reason that we came, that's when our life ends. This is my opinion. And as I learn more, as I get exposed to more, my opinion may change. That's our right. That's everybody's right. And that's the thing about when I go back to, I think it's unavoidable that our children become basically a copy and paste imprint of whatever our opinions were at the time that we were parenting them. And, I've spent the last 15 years knowing with absolute certainty I do not want to have kids, and I will never have kids. Like, that's not an experience that I'm willing to have, because I barely can trust my own opinions. I can barely trust my own well-being. There's no way I would risk bringing a child in and then only to find out that, like, yeah, my stability was a sham and there's nothing real here that they can rely on. Like, I still, like, didn't love myself enough to want to pass myself on to the future generation, Like, it was still so triggering to think about creating a mini-me. Because, like, why would I bring someone else into a world that's full of pain and suffering like this? Like, that seems really cruel. And so that, again, was my opinion for the last 15 years. And at this point, I have, like, a different appreciation for the opinions of the people who raised us in the beginning of our lives, because I think they are absolutely the fertilizer, sometimes like total bullshit, total just absolute utter falsehood, like sometimes there's truth in what they say, and sometimes, like, everybody has a different start, and that's like kind of on purpose, I think. But like, even if a person gets a total like fertilizer filled childhood, like, I'm seeing now, my opinion is now that there's still a lot of value in that. And what was really holding me back is that my child was going to hate me. And it's like, even with the most painful childhood, people can still go forward and bring a lot of good and love into the world. And would you really deny the world that because you're worried that this person might also hate you while they're doing it? that reminds me of a story that I only recently learned about my dad that kind of changed the way I looked at him, and just like gave me a new appreciation for him. Long before I was born, like right after he had started his business and met my mom, and like was kind of just like really beginning his life there in his like mid-20s, he met someone through my mom's extended family who looked him up and down, like in the moment of meeting him, and just kind of like sneered at him, "You'll never amount to anything." Just like knew it was certainty. And told him, like right in front of my mom, who was just like brand new dating. Like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that that exchange ever happened. And as it was told to me, the story was that my dad has always hated this person. And I was like, what? Why? Like, what is there to hate about this person? And then I was told, like, this is what that person said to him one time 40 years ago, you know? And I was like, oh, I see. And I think that was part of this turning point, because I see what my dad did with his life. I see the like utter determination, persistence, pouring your entire heart, soul, life force energy into what you're doing to make it everything that it can be, because of the motherfucker who said you're never gonna amount to anything. You know, like, he hated him. And I know from my own experience with hate that it's fuel. It's absolutely fuel for the fire of what you're here to do. And that realization that, like, you know, sometimes some of us, I won't say that we need somebody to hate, but that we can actually really benefit from someone to hate, someone to be the villain, someone to be the opponent that we have to prove wrong. And I'll say here too that my opinion is that we are our only opponent ever, and that there are times when other people embody the opposing viewpoint that we ourselves personally hold. Like, what I'm saying is, I think at that point in my dad's life, he was sitting there going for it, right? He started his business, he's like dating my mom, like he's going for it, he's doing the thing. But I would just almost guarantee that he had massive self-doubt that basically sounded just like, you will never amount to anything. And then here's this person to say exactly that, and for him to hate for 40 years, and I can just picture, like, every time, and again, this I'm drawing from my own relationship with hate, every time you think about giving up, every time you think about feeling sorry for yourself and just kind of like throwing in the towel, or you have a setback and now it's like, well, you know, maybe I won't amount to anything, and then you just get mad all over again. You're like, fuck that, yes I will. And like, it's fuel. It's fuel. For 40 years, it was fuel for him. He still hates him. And I'm like, if you hate someone, they're your fuel, you know? And my opinion is that you don't need them. You really don't. You can realize that, like, this is my own opinion that I'm fighting against, that I'm trying to prove wrong. I don't need to prove it to them. I need to prove it to me. I need to prove me wrong, that you know, part of me does think I'll never amount to anything, but I need to prove that part of me wrong. I need to make bigger and encourage the part of me that knows that I do have value and I do have things that I can add to the world that will make it better. You know, I need to encourage that part of me. So sometimes we do manifest opposition, and we manifest someone who has an opinion that is very different from our own. And it only ever, I believe in my own opinion, it only ever is to help us to figure out what we really think. You know, what do you really think about yourself? Because in my experience, someone's opinion of us only upsets us when we already think it's true. And when we don't think it's true, then it can be so funny. Like, it can be just like absolutely like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, just what are you saying? It doesn't even make sense. You know, like when someone's opinion is completely off base and unfounded in reality, as far as like we do not hold that as any piece of our identity, it's not true about who we are at all, it will land with all the absurdity of something out of left field. It will startle us, it'll surprise us, it'll make us laugh, it'll be like, what? Where do you even come up with that? You know, disbelief, incredulous, like that is what the true response is when something is completely false. And when we get triggered, when someone's opinion makes us angry, or now we have to hate them, like that's just the forming of kind of the beginning of us getting to unravel that opinion is actually not true, and that this person is helping us to do that. And at any point you can let go of the person that you hate and just leave them to their opinion, right? Like it's just their opinion. It doesn't matter. Like it's just based on what they think. And we all think all kinds of crazy things, right? Like all we can ever do is the best that we can see through our own leading edge perspective. And if someone's opinion upsets us, that's a good sign that we ourselves are holding that opinion of ourselves, and that it's probably not true. That there's something there that we would be benefited by working through and processing and integrating, and to trust our disgust. You know, like I think anger and disgust are two very interesting emotions when you put them side by side, because it's like when we get angry at someone, when we feel that fuel coming up through the bottom of our belly that pushes us into action, that is such a gift. That's such a gift, because before that there was no action, right? Or there wasn't as powerful an action. There wasn't as like intense an action as there is now, that there's this fuel of hate. And so again, it's not necessary, but I do think that there are people who benefit from being ignited by hating someone. And I personally am not a fan of this approach. In my opinion, it's somewhat like a rest area on our journey of radical responsibility, to get out onto the off-ramp of like hating someone else, like projecting this thing onto someone else. But at the same time, like I think it's not wasted time. I'm not saying that like it's a rest area and like you shouldn't go there. Like, no, it's of benefit to do that. Like I said, sometimes we need that extra little fuel to like really get where we want to go. But we can come back on the path of integration and finding that inside of ourselves, and finding, you know, what is real for me? What do I really think? And how deeply do I believe that thing? So asking ourselves, who are we really? What do we really know to be true about who we really are? What is our opinion on these matters? And what opinions from others have we soaked up that possibly we're ready to let go of? Thank you so much for listening. It has been my absolute pleasure to unpack all of this myself, and to do it in a way where you get to see the in-process, imperfect, leading edge version of what I understand to be true as I live this life, making these transmissions and unraveling these ideas in a public way. It feels so simple, and yet like I know I don't even get to really understand the ripple effect of what these transmissions cause in the world. If you would like to share with me your experience of this transmission, I would love to hear that down below in the comments. If not, no worries at all. If you want to say hi, Smokey Bob, you can do that too. I'm so excited to hear if you can like actually hear his, her, I still don't really know, little purr. It's just like constant. Like if you're touching him, he's purring. He's absolutely the sweetest little kitten I've ever had. He's such a little sweet gift. And yeah, I think that's all for this day. Until next time, I hope you will take such good care of the divine extension of all that is, that you are, the very special reason that you are here, and so will I.